All right, so let's make a
there's a lady recording it.
Yeah, no, me. Let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, team. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios of Fairfax City, we're very humble and grateful that Tim Blake accepted our invitation to our show. Tim, welcome to the show, man.
Hi.
So let's start from the beginning. So, with all the stuff that is going on with the pandemic and inability to tour and go outside the match, and affecting your life, your family, your career as a musician, how you holding up, man? How you doing, man? With the pandemic,
I mean, it's a very strange time.
Yeah.
Because when it started, I was very much joined up with my very old friend Dave Brook in playing with Hawkwind, celebrating 50. We were having a ball, and it's been.
Somebody unplugged the thing, right?
Yeah. It was unplugged straight away, and now. For me, who lives in France in particular, as far as working for Hawkwind is concerned, it's all down to the way people will open the borders. It's become necessary as a working traveller to become vaccinated, to have codes, to have things on your phone, to have all this equipment to travel, but we still are not free to travel. So, one just sits there and waiting, was this the end of the 50-year journey, or is this the beginning of the next one? I don't know.
Yeah, I understood, and it's difficult for everybody, but you're alive. Hopefully gigs coming your way, you have very good music, you have a long way. We want to see Tim Blake for another 50 years, man.
Well, who knows? I have no idea.
So
I have no idea.
Were you born like in a musical family, Tim? Were you born like in a musical family? When you began playing piano or taking piano lesson or guitar lesson or whatever?
No, now in my family, on my father's side, for instance, you were either soldier or priest or both.
Yeah.
So I became both by being a musician, you see. Yeah. And I had two accesses to a little musical education. One as a choir boy, singing in church.
Yeah.
Which I was quite good at, and I got awards for, and that got you learning to read one line of music off a piece of paper, which helps. Not much, but it helps. And when I went on to a higher level of schooling, I was very lucky to be able to learn music with Derek Bourgeois, who was a composer. And Derek Bourgeois was a specialist in brass instruments, and he had me playing the trumpet, strangely enough. And so from kind of 13, 14 to 16, I was taking regular trumpet lessons. And that had got me playing in a school orchestra, which is an experience, and in a school band, which was a good way to get out of too much military training. And generally, working with Derek was very inspiring for people who had, for instance, he told me never to try to play the piano. He said, it's too late. It's too late. You should have been learning when you were 6, but you weren't. So forget it. So I didn't bother with the piano really. And I've had to come to terms with keyboards because of synthesizer playing.
Sure.
But, I first got into synthesizers as a myriad of knobs and buttons, What can we do? But and then there's, 50 years after all of this, there's this joke which Dave and I have, which is that when I was 17, I wanted to play the guitar in Hawkwind, you see.
Wow.
And there was no way I was going to get to play the guitar in Hawkwind. But all these years later, after a strange flash with Lemmy and Dave playing solos, Dave said to me, well, you always wanted to play the guitar, get on with it. So I do,
Yeah.
And
Wow.
now it's funny, really. It's like a full circle. Even if nothing else happens, come on, we've had a good time.
Of course. Well, so what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I live not opulently, but comfortably, the way things are. Okay. No real need. I've kind of settled my problems with the music business by taking part as little as possible in what they do, So I'm a happy man, if it was all about the last 50 years, fantastic,
Of course,
If it's about the next.
and people like me, and the audience like the music. So I'm glad you did it, man. So
but I don't have any anger or something, It's not a need for me to go out anymore.
Gotcha. I understand. What kind of music before joining Gong? What kind of music were you listening to? Were you listening to rock, electronic music, Genesis?
Before joining Gong?
Yeah, before. When you were 17, 18, what kind of music were you listening to?
Well, you see, for a start, everybody my age who's English,
Yeah.
kind of woke up, I don't know what year it was, we can look it up on Google if you like,
No.
to a TV series
Yeah.
called Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Now, the theme music from Doctor Who, which wasn't in itself fabulous, had been performed and realised, I believe that's the term, in Musique Concrète by Delia Derbyshire. And this rather banal theme became the ultimate piece of space music ever, and this is when I'm a young kid, 11 or 12 or something. What's this, And for instance, when I started using theremin,
Yeah.
my first remark was, why didn't I get one of these when I was a kid? Because I would be a master of it by now. And then you got in the electronics world, you got music from Luciano Berio, for instance, which was quite amazing and pretty psychedelic. And we were getting interested in psychedelic music then. And of course, it's impossible not to mention Switched on Bach.
Yeah, of course.
Because once you'd heard Switched on Bach, you realized that the adventure with synthesizers would only be limited by your imagination.
Yeah.
You know, and that was it, you know, crack. I had to go that way. Hawkwind had formed at that time. Dipmick was going mad with his generator, you know. Yes, he's part of my inspiration too. Well, perhaps we inspired each other because we were actually living together at one point, you know. And but I was the sound man, you know. I was the man who was doing sound for all these bands. And my invitation to go to France to join Gong was based on me being a sound man, but it immediately changed into me being a musician.
Be a musician, gotcha. And by the way, before we go into Gong, you mentioned Switch on Bach. Have you ever met Wendy Carlos?
No.
No, you know.
I've been a Moog user. The mini Moog I had, which was a Bob Moog one, you know, RD Moog Limited, not Moog Music Inc. And I've used a modular Moog. I haven't owned it, but used it. But despite this, I'm not the best friend of Moog Inc. I don't know why, because I'm associated with EMS synthesizers so heavily, I think. You know, this is a Bob Moog built Big Briar theremin. It's got antique value, actually. I want to get the new Claravox because Moog knows I've modified my theremin, and they've produced very good ways of doing this themselves, and I'd love to try it. And my theremin friend, Dorrit Chrysler, she says, you'll love it, you know. But she's a friend of Moog. They look after me. They don't look after me, which is a shame. But, you know, yeah, you know, I mean, obviously I would have enjoyed meeting Carlos. Far too exacting musician for someone like me. I'm far too... I mean, Peter Zinoviev died last month.
I understand.
3 weeks.
So
someone brought out a film about Delia Derbyshire, where there were interviews with Peter and with David Vorhaus and with Brian Hodgson, all who worked with her, and they were fictional reproductions of episodes in their life, which was very strange. And Zinoviev comes on, and when he mentions David Vorhaus, then along came David Vorhaus. He was like a hippie, you know. Yes, well, of course we were. He didn't really like us, you know. I don't know if you know what Peter liked is that we bought his synthesizers, which allowed him to spend money on his computer studio. Right, I got caught at 6:30 in the morning with Basil Brooks in his computer studio, having hijacked it. Which I went up in his esteem, but I think the closest I ever got to Peter Zinoviev was that I would eat the very, very hot chutney on his EMS lunches, you know, because he used to look at that and see if you would survive eating the very hot one, you know. But
sure, I understand. So when
as musicians, there wasn't much interaction between the classical boys which Carlos definitely was, the contemporary boys, which Zinoviev definitely was, and the hippies, which I definitely was, you know, and I accept that. You know.
So you went for, when you joined Gong, you were like a sound person, right? Like a sound engineer, people calling you to help here, to help there, and then you became, you know, part of in Gone in the early 70s, right? Was that correct?
Well, yeah, it's 50 years ago this year.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. Right.
50 years ago this year, right? I was a sound engineer. My exploits had helped Hawkwind to form.
Yeah.
And I worked with a little company of groups. So there was always a sound needed somewhere, you know. And I was cheap and cheerful, as they say. And meeting a lot of people, and in particular, meeting both Kevin Ayers and the soft machine, in particular, Robert.
Yeah.
And this somehow led to me being invited to Marquee Studios to help David and Pierre Lattez finish an album David was making called Banana. And we did 2 days work and the album was finished. And David says, well, would you, you know, I'm going back the day after tomorrow. Do you want to come back and do sound with Gong?
Wow.
So I went back with David. And, but in fact, since David has been gone, although his sound man had effectively left the group, the assistant sound man had definitely moved in as the sound engineer. And it would have been ridiculous to spoil this, but David hadn't been thinking properly, I don't know, you know. Anyway, Phoenix and I looked after the band together for a little while. And I actually profited as Gong had its own sound system. I sold some sound equipment I had in England and I bought my first synthesizer. Now, when Pip Pyle came to join Gong, I think it's fair to say Pip and I knew each other. We didn't really appreciate each other from the word go. And I drifted off and did a bit of this there and a bit of that there and ended up in Paris, where it was good to be one of the first people around with the synthesizer. And I was doing a few sessions. I made a couple of very strange contemporary records, very strange indeed, but that doesn't mean not good. You know, quite proud of them. Jury Fou by Pascal Dufart. This is a collector's item, so but it's so weird, you know. But you know, having done things with orchestras, with jazz, with opera singers, and electronics. I mean, it was a very adventurous time. I went to Japan as a touring musician for the first time, and then by the time I came back to Japan, I was kind of making bits of tape, most of which is available. There's quite a lot of 1972 in edits on the Cherry Red Lighthouse box set, which is advertisement here, quickly. Right, yeah, this little box set.
Of course, I have it.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a bit of 72. They've got all their dates wrong, but and of course we were distributing music completely outside of the industry, as it were. On cassette form,
Cassette form, yeah.
But at the same time, when I was in Paris, my life partner at that time was someone who was quite a lot older than me and had been a contemporary dancer. And she'd in fact been a star of contemporary dance, in as much that she was a partner with Maurice Béjart and danced all his first ballets with him, which meant she was also a great friend of Pierre-Henri.
Wow.
So I met Pierre-Henri. I actually sold him a synthesizer. And when he died, this synthesizer was always on display in his studio. I don't think it was plugged in. He didn't play synthesizer, but, so I was able to catch up.
Gotcha. Yeah.
This first world of electronic music, which was musique concrète, that had alerted us from Doctor Who, because apart from Schaeffer and Henry, no one else was really good at musique concrète, apart from Delia Derbyshire, who was the best.
Absolutely. So in Gone, you appear on the 3 albums, right? Or the Radio Gnome Invisible Trilogy, where I think they're Flying, Teapot, Angels X, and You, and it's a lot of controversy.
When it gets up to everything else we did, there's 13 CDs in there.
Yeah.
So I think there's one I don't play on, but we did a lot of playing.
It's a lot of controversy on those trilogy albums. Who did what? Was Allen involved? Smyth involved? Were you writing most of the stuff? What happened? There's a lot of controversy.
There's 2 sides of the story of Gong.
Okay.
One, that the people who run Gong and profit from it prefer, and one that I just lived. And for a start, there is no trilogy.
What do you mean by that?
They've been very clever on the Virgin box.
Yeah.
They don't say it's the trilogy box set. They say Gong the Virgin Years. Which is a good idea, because there is no relationship, and I feel absolutely free to say this because I'm a composer on both.
Gotcha.
But there is no relationship between Flying Teapot and Angel's Egg and You. There's a relationship overdubbed into into all 3 albums of, shall we say, Angel's Egg and You by David to make them a trilogy.
I see. I understand now.
But they are not. Okay? Now then, there's a whole obscure reason for this. The Gong story will never be clear, but it seems that at the same time as we signed a record contract with Virgin, which was in between Angel's Egg and You, David had already signed a record contract with a friend of his for a trilogy. So David was trying to run a number on everybody, Virgin, Gong, and everybody, in order to fulfill an engagement he had made with somebody else about a trilogy. But for a start, let's look at these 3 albums. Flying Teapot, I was contacted by David round about the summer of 1972, saying, "Oh, I've heard your cassette and this, and is it true you're playing live concerts?" I said, "Well, very rare, but when we can, we have a go at it." "Yes." You know, he said, "Well, why don't you come back and play with the band, and then at the beginning of next year, we're going to make this album." Okay. So I moved back to Sens, playing, and we're dealing with a logical suite to Camembert Electric, you know, with the songs. They're all really good, but it's very much a David album, apart from the fact that the actual riff of Flying Teapot comes from Francis Mose. I had to rewrite a bit of that for Didier at his demand, so that he could play a more interesting solo. But, you know, we're dealing with Allen, Mose, Allen and Alan Smyth music throughout Flying Teapot, apart from the Octadox of the Crystal Machine, which is obviously something I did by myself in my corner. And that's 100% good, okay, and concise. But the thing is, Gong broke up during that record. I mean, not a little bit, but completely. And by the end of that recording session, Gong was me and Didier Malherbe, you know, which is a bit weird. Now, we went back to Sens, and we called in Steve, who had already been going through the preliminaries with. And Pierre rocked up by himself, you know, just drawn in by a magnet. And then a month or 2 later, David sent us Mike Howlett, okay? And that worked like a bomb. But during this period, we wrote Angel's Egg. Now, there can be no trilogy because there is no liaison between Flying Teapot and Angel's Egg. It just isn't there. Musically, it's, you know, I mean, what I think is so good is the music we wrote at that period is absolutely clearly identifiable as Gong music.
Right.
You know, and it could have been written with David, it just wasn't, you know? And David has actually tried his best to make much of it his own over the years, until he died, which is, in my opinion, a signification of how well we did in being Gong without him, you know. In a way, I suppose I like Angel's Egg best because we recorded this in our house, okay, with a mobile studio. Sometimes playing in the garden, sometimes in your bedroom, and so, you know, and the drums, okay, in the music room, you know, because they had screens around them and stuff like that. But when I hear that record, without getting involved in the songs or the music or what, the sound it has reminds me of that house.
I see.
And I suppose that is the definition of a good recording, isn't it? If it sounds like those people in that place, then it's well recorded, you know. So I think we may have had a great success in capturing time with that. Right?
Absolutely, man. No, that's now it's clear to me. That's a very good answer. And then you end up leaving Gong, and then you put this.
Yeah, we made you.
Yeah, of course. After that, right?
And you is talking musicology here. Is even more interesting because everybody says it's the best music we ever wrote.
Is it?
That's what people say. I have no opinion. I can't.
Yeah.
You know, some of it's the most enjoyable to play. That is sure.
Gotcha.
But how we wrote this, again, it's got to be said. You was written by Steve, Pierre, Mike, Didier, and me, and then overdubbed. Unfortunately, this is true, which is why I wasn't there afterwards. You know. Yeah, but instead of saying it would be nice to do this, or it would be nice to do that, we started to create music based on where we didn't get on. Now, the absolute perfect example of this is the Cycles Gliss. Right? Now, Steve and I, at that time, would have been very happy to play music for an infinite number of hours, which featured one note only. And would probably be having a strong 4/4 beat, which is probably why we get called grandparents of techno. In fact, Steve actually plays techno music, you know. I mean, but that wasn't necessary to everybody's liking. Didier could be incredibly well spoken in the way he explains how jazz and how the jazz soloist, the saxophonist has to find scales between the changing chords. And how boring it is to play one's head off on one note, you know. And next to that, Pierre and Mike would complain about the simplicity of beats, you know. I suppose the best example of composed tempo in You would be the riff of Sprinkling of Clouds, which they came up with, which is 1 2 3 4 5 2 2 3 4 5 3 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6. It's still 24, but that's where the accents come from. Dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 da. You know, and so we came up with the Cycles Gliss, which is constantly going up in minor thirds and changing time signature every time round. And this is, you know, our disagreements producing incredibly new music. I mean, it was a great, I think it's a major experience for everybody involved, You know, I see. Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot of us, but I see Mike, who went on to be a record producer and appears to be very much a retired record producer who goes and plays with friends from time to time. I see Didier, who did take up on a completely new career after Gong, you know, with the Duduk and its fabulous career and its career here in France. And I say Steve, who's been messing around with psychedelic dance music for a few years, has now got back to playing Steve Hillage music again.
Wow.
You know, but it's still the 70s music, you know, so that's not progressing. So I think you'll find that with the exception of Didier, we all came to a musical climax there, you know. I mean, Pierre, before he died, was saying, we've got to get back to that space, you know. Now, who knows what would have been if it had been different, but it wasn't. It's like it is.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But you know, I mean, you is the most, you know, but I really don't see the trilogy in there.
I understand, and thank you for clarifying that.
You know,
because
I suppose there is a trilogy. It's from David to after David in 3 steps, but in fact it's in 1. You know, and that's Flying Teapot. You know, no, I don't see where the trilogy is at all, and I find this very confusing, actually.
Right. It was to me. That's what the reason I was asking. And then after that, going on in your career and Tim, you decided to leave Gong and began your solo career under the name of Crystal Machine, and you released in '77 Crystal Machine and '78 Blake New Jerusalem, which are both unbelievable albums.
Yes, well, yes, I made them. I had to live with them. They'll do.
Why you use it? What was the reason of using not, you know, Tim Blake's new album and using Crystal Machine? Was there a special reason using the Crystal Machine name, or?
Well, as I was saying, the pre-Gong stuff, or the you know, in these 6 to 9 months I was traveling about in France, you know, the last 6 of them I spent in Paris, you know. Right? Yeah. Now Paris is like any city to the penniless artist.
Yeah.
It's always very hard because you have to find somewhere to play. And I was introduced to a friend called Philip Denny, who used to be a disc jockey and had tape recorders. Wow, you know. And so I had my synthesizer set up at his place, you know.
Yeah.
And we wanted a name, so we came up with Crystal Machine Studio.
Wow.
And it goes in function to what we would do. I think the night we came up with the name, we were playing with a Le Parc light sculpture into which we had replaced the light source with a laser.
No.
You know, and we had we invented the Crystal Machine in our heads, so we invented it on paper too. You know.
I understand. And so that's the reason that you use the name. And is it the Crystal Machine album and New Jerusalem, from your point of view, the best you ever done, or I mean at the time? And because you did well in sales, you were selling records a lot, right? At the time, they were.
You see, what was really brilliant about Crystal Machine
Yeah.
was the work with Patrice. Now, I will send you the only bits of memory I have, of documents